This is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Hope you enjoy this critical thought, your daily discussion on game design. And be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and you can pitch future critical thought topics. Before we get going with today's critical thought, I want to run an idea by you guys for a suggestion to improve the Patreon campaign. As you know, I have a pretty sizable goal up there now as the first one. So I was thinking about maybe having smaller goals to add more content and help get people motivated to donate. So the first goal I was thinking about is a $100 goal to expand coverage here on the YouTube channel. This would let me buy more classic games on the PlayStation 4 store, get a subscription to PlayStation Vue, which is their streaming service, and open the doors for a whole lot more in terms of variety here on the channel, including one game I would love to show you guys, and that is Ninja Gaiden Sigma, which is the PlayStation equivalent of Ninja Gaiden Black, which is one of my all-time favorite action games. And if we can hit that goal, this will expand things to allow me to cover that game and look at more classic games using the PlayStation service. And if that goal goes well, I'll start thinking about a goal for maybe your like $150 or $200 tier. If you like that idea, please let me know in the comments below. And if you are very excited about it, don't donate just yet. Let me update the Patreon with it first. With that said, let's get to today's topic. And this is one that was suggested a few weeks ago during the big holiday season, I guess 2-week vacation there. And this is, can small games survive on Steam? As we know, there are a lot of games on Steam right now. I own over 1,100 of them, and that's still not scratching the surface. And we see games of all sizes, genres, and designs. From massive $60 games from the AAA market, AA $30, $40, indie games at $10 to $20, and then we even have small games. These are games that are normally priced at about usually $5 or less. And when we talk about small games, we're not referring to, of course, micro games, for those of you who are fans of the WarioWare series. Small games typically run maybe 2 to 3 hours, maybe a little bit more than that, and are usually built around one mechanic or twists, and that's it. These aren't games you're going to be playing for 20, 30 hours. Replayability is mainly kept to if you want to experience it again, and we could basically make these akin to going to see a movie. You know, you're going to spend a few bucks. Of course, now today, movie prices are even higher, but you're going to go get 2-3 hours of entertainment, and that's it. Think of this as, you know, going to like a food truck or like a small diner and getting like a little snack. You're not going to get, a gourmet meal. This is going to be something that's going to fill you up for the day, but, it's short and sweet. And when we think about older indie games, the quote-unquote shovelware era back in the day, this is what people were expecting from the indie market. Very cheap games. You're not going to get a full experience, something, to kill 2 to 3 hours. And as we've seen, especially discussions about the race to the dollar or race to the bottom, where developers are trying to push their games as low as possible to, reduce the price barrier from people buying them. And small games have certainly been caught in the crossfire. A few years ago, there was a very polarizing post made by, I think, Puppy Dog Games, the makers of stuff like Attack of the Titans, and a lot of their very stylized titles. Let me see if I can quickly pull this up. No, it wasn't Puppy Games. Damn, I can't think of the studio off the top of my head. But what they were talking about was the idea that they released their games at a very low price. And the problem is that what they're making from these games wasn't enough to justify either the profit or continue support. And they were arguing about the issues of the Humble Bundle, or bundling in general. And we've talked about bundling before. I don't know if we've mentioned or we've dedicated an entire critical thought to it. If I haven't, please let me know, because that will certainly be one for discussing later. But what they were talking about were people getting their games for, 5 cents, a penny, stuff like that, and asking or demanding, $4 or $5 worth of technical support per game, or they're basically, the developers are running into a problem that the cost of selling their game and supporting it wasn't being made up. And they were selling their games pretty cheap, usually in the $5 to $10 range. And this is a topic we've talked about before with this idea of the bottom dropping out of the independent game market, or if it could. And when we talk about small games, these certainly fit in that category. Our example for today is Pony Island, a cute game that certainly doesn't hide a malicious core or anything like that. Just a very free-spirited game for children of all ages, for those of you who have played it. And Pony Island was released very cheaply. Let me pull up the exact price here, because I actually got it from a Humble Bundle as part of this conversation. So it was priced at $5. And this would take us into the small category. The game is only a few hours long, built around one mechanic or twist, and that's it. You're not going to get 50 hours out of Pony Island, no matter how you play it. And these kinds of small games, they run the gambit, and I'm sure for every day that we talk, probably a few dozen of these kinds of games are released. But the problem with these small games, again, is with developers or larger tier games racing to the bottom, these games are being priced competitively either through sales or just through general marketing with the big boys. With games, what we've seen today are games that are priced at $10, $20 thanks to being on sale, being massive experiences. As we know, a few weeks ago there was the Steam holiday sale, and a whole lot of games were put on sale. $5, $10, $2. I think I bought a few 99-cent games while we were there. And these 99-cent games were maybe originally priced at $2 to $3. Now, the problem when we are lumping everything together again is that it throws price out the window in terms of a quantifier for game quality. If every game is priced at $5, then we have, again, these AA or bigger budget games sitting next to these games that were maybe built for, an hour at a time. Now, for the big games, this isn't a problem for them. When we see a massive game, a $20, $30 game on sale for $5, $6, most likely we're going to buy it. But when you put those games next to those games that were already $5, or maybe discounted a little bit more than that, those smaller games are looked at less favorably. Again, if I'm going to spend $5 on a game, and I have a choice between a game that only has 2 to 3 hours of content, or if I spend another dollar or two for a game that has 20 or 30 hours of content, chances are we're going to go for the game that has more value. And this is the ever popular idea of, bigger stores pushing out the little guys. The issues that we saw with, the discussions about Walmart and how they undercut smaller stores who literally can't afford to go cheaper. And this is that kind of same principle. If I'm already selling my game at $3, $4, I can't, it's going to be very hard for me to turn a profit at $1 or 50 cents. But when we see games at $20, $30 go cheaper, $10, $5, while they're not necessarily earning a profit, they are, of course, moving a lot of copies. And if things go ideally, they're going to make up the profit in terms of copies sold as opposed to a higher price. And as we talked about earlier in terms of the psychology, when we see games that are 6 months, a year out go on these massive discounts, they are meant to hook the people who weren't going to buy their games originally. You have fans who will buy your game day one. You have the people who will buy, Call of Duty, Madden, Final Fantasy, whatever, at $60, and they'll be more than happy with that. The point and the conditioning for sales is to get the people who weren't going to buy it. These are the people who, they'll spend $30 on a game, they're not going to spend $60. And it's the same principle. These are the people who, they'll see a $20 game and go, yeah, I like it, but I'm going to wait for it to be $5 or $10 because I don't like it $20 as much. And bringing this back to the smaller games occupy a very weird niche. Again, these are titles that we literally aren't going to see anywhere else. In many cases, the design doesn't warrant or justify a larger development budget. Pony Island, for instance, again, it's a game built on one unique twist. And while it's a clever one, it's not exactly something we could stretch out to 20, 30, 40 hours of play. Even if the developers put in the work to it, there are just some ideas that you can't stretch out. RPGs, for instance, would be the counter example. We can have 20, 30-hour RPGs very easily thanks to the turn-based systems. You can turn a roguelike, you can expand a roguelike with new content and give it 30, 40, 50, 60 hours of content. Binding of Isaac, for instance, just had Anti-Birth Plus, I think that's what it's called, and of course the mods, and that game has a whole lot of content for $9. And the point is, if someone was to make a smaller or a small game version of Binding of Isaac, not exactly Binding of Isaac, obviously, for copyright reasons, but a game similar to it for $2 to $3, they may get some sales. But again, people are going to look at it and go, well, it's $3, $4. Why can't I just buy Binding of Isaac? And again, the closer the larger or the more popular games get to these smaller games, thanks to price reductions or sales, the more it's going to hurt these smaller titles. Now, with that said, of course, it's important to mention that when we talk about small games, these aren't titles developed for 2 to 3 years. And if someone spent 2 to 3 years working on a small game, that is a very big problem. The point of smaller games is small development cycles, small pricing, and of course, small risks. Someone who's working on a game for a year to 2 years and pricing the game at $30 has a lot more to lose compared to someone who developed a game over 30 days and is selling it for $2 to $3. There is a common expression or a tip that we've seen indie developers mention, and that is fail small. That is, it's better to fail with a game that's priced at $2, $3 that you've worked on for a few weeks versus failing over your $50 magnum opus that you've spent the last 3, 4 years of your life working on to find it crash and burn. And this is kind of why we still see small games as being viable, or at least as an option for developers. That it allows you to quickly iterate and evolve an idea, maybe make a few bucks on it, and gauge the market and your own skill level when it comes to making games. And small games certainly cannot work on the console, or at least in terms of a retail release. When we talk about, PSN, the Wii Virtual Console, Xbox Live, stuff like that, smaller games can certainly succeed. But you will never see a $2 game on store shelves at GameStop or Target or Walmart or anything like that. Because why would they put a $2 game on a store shelf when they can put a 20, 30, 40, and we can keep going on kind of thing? But let's wrap up today's critical thought and with a question for you folks. For those of you watching this right now, do you find yourself buying small games? Again, $5 or less. And what do you think about the price per value? Again, these are games that aren't meant to provide dozens of hours. If you get 2 or 3 hours, that's considered, on the high end of the scale. And what does this mean, again, for larger games or games that are trying to price themselves more on the narrative end? We've talked about Gone Home and Dear Esther before. These are games with only a few hours of content, but priced pretty high up there, usually $15, $20. And this again leads back into that greater discussion on the pricing issues when it comes to games. Now, when everyone is priced the same way, it kind of leads to muddling the game market. But to end this thought with small games, I think for me, I am somewhat concerned about it. If you're going into making a small game with the same approach and mindset that you're making a $10, $20 game, I think you're going to run the risk of losing your shirt, or more importantly, losing your company. Because again, when you're pricing games at this value or making them, you can't go into this expecting to make a $1 million seller. And I'm sure for some of you indie developers watching this, you probably just got a good laugh out of that comment. With these smaller games, again, think of this as fast food. You're not going into this expecting a giant game or a perfectly crafted one, but you still want to provide some kind of value. And if you can manage that, and this can also be considered good practice for developing a fully featured game. You could work on 3 or 4 small games and decide, okay, people like this one and this one, maybe I can expand this out, or is there room to grow this and make a fuller scale game? With that said, you also, there's even more risk with that. If you have your small game being very popular, can you sell that as, a larger experience? Can you turn a small game into a $20 bigger title? I don't know the answer to that. For those of you watching, especially from the indie developer side of things, have you done anything like that on your end? Have you taken a small idea that you've developed for $2, maybe $1, and then say, can we blow this up for $20? And I know the easy answer is just add more levels or more content, but that, my friends, takes us into a discussion on pacing and the challenges and mysteries of effective game pacing. But unfortunately, that we will have to save for another time. So to end things here, thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about that $100 Patreon goal. And if there is enough interest, and if I can think of some other ways to spice things up, I think I'll add that in. But for now, thanks again for watching today's Critical Thought. Check back daily for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. And until tomorrow, I'm Josh Bycer. Have a great night, and I'll see you all then. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GWBycer for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GWBycer for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.